witches risk everything. This deep dive into demon mythology reveals the intriguing link between witches and the demonic entities they profess to conjure. From ancient rites to whispered legends, the relationship between witches and demons has captivated and horrified humanity. Were these dark pacts real, or were they just fabrications formed of fear and misunderstanding? Join us as we investigate historical sources, examine folklore, and dispute myths that portray witches as Satan's consorts. Take a journey into a realm where magic and myth merge. To understand the relevance of demonic pacts in witch mythology, we must first investigate the roots of both witchcraft and demonology. Witchcraft is an ancient discipline that is commonly connected with harnessing natural forces, casting spells, and interacting with spirits. However, in many cultures, witches were thought to be able to conjure and control demons, making them both feared and revered. Demonology is the study of demons and how they interact with humans. In many theological traditions, demons are portrayed as wicked spirits or fallen angels who attempt to corrupt and destroy humanity. The combination of witchcraft and demonology gave rise to the concept of the witch's pact, a formal agreement between a witch and a demon in which the witch obtains power, knowledge, or otherworldly help in exchange for something of great worth, most commonly their soul. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to watch all the upcoming videos. The contract with a demon is typically shown as a formal agreement, frequently sealed in blood or through another ritualistic act. The specifics of the covenant differ based on the mythology, but they usually include a quid pro quo arrangement. The witch acquires supernatural abilities, hidden information, or the ability to affect events in the mortal world, while the demon receives something of equal or greater worth in exchange. The witch's soul is the most popular offering in these pacts. In many mythologies, the soul is seen as the essence of a person's being and their eternal connection to the divine or the afterlife. By giving their soul to a demon, a witch basically forfeits their hope of salvation and condemns themselves to endless punishment. This makes the deal an extremely high-stakes bet, since the witch risks not only their mortal life but also their everlasting fate. The promise of power is frequently what draws people into striking a bargain with a demon. Witches who enter into these partnerships are typically portrayed as seeking to transcend the constraints of their earthly existence. Whether motivated by vengeance, a passion for knowledge, or a desire to control their fate, these witches are willing to pay any price to attain their objectives. One of the most well-known stories of a witch making a contract with a demon is that of Faust, a scholar who, unhappy with the boundaries of human knowledge, strikes a deal with the demon Mephistopheles. Faust receives boundless knowledge and worldly pleasures in return for his soul, but his bargain eventually leads to his demise. This narrative exemplifies the primary premise of many demonic pacts. The desire for power frequently blinds people to the true cost of their ambitions. The risks of forming a contract with a demon are varied and serious. Beyond the loss of one's soul, the witch frequently becomes involved in a web of deception and manipulation. Demons, by definition, are tricksters and deceivers. While they may grant the witch what she desires, they frequently violate the rules of the bargain, resulting in the witch's demise. For example, a witch may wish for money, only to discover that their acquired riches come at the expense of the life of their loved ones. Alternatively, a witch seeking eternal youth may learn that she is doomed to live forever in a deteriorating, diseased body. These brutal twists serve as a warning that engaging with demons is always risky, as their primary objective is to corrupt and destroy. Another serious concern is the loss of the witch's humanity. In several myths, the power obtained by a demonic pact corrupts the witch, converting her into something hideous. As the witch uses their newfound skills, they may lose empathy, compassion, and connection to the mortal world, eventually developing into something horrible. Over time, the witch may become more demon than human, caught in a circle of violence and evil from which they cannot escape. Given the severe consequences of a demonic pact, numerous myths examine ways to break or escape such an arrangement. However, this is rarely a simple process. Demons are crafty and will not give up their control over a soul without a fight. The witch may seek forgiveness by acts of tremendous self-sacrifice, appeal to higher powers for help, or try to outwit the demon. In some accounts, the witch is saved via love or repentance, A true change of heart combined with a willingness to atone for their sins can occasionally reduce the demon's hold on their soul. In other circumstances, the witch must participate in a war of wits, employing their brains and skill to exploit flaws in the contract or force the demon to free them. Even when a pact is dissolved, the witch frequently bears the scars of her struggle. They may be physically or spiritually scarred, haunted by memories of their time in the demon's service, or cursed to bear the consequences of their acts. This emphasizes the idea that while atonement is possible, the cost of forming a bargain with a demon cannot be totally reversed. To understand the relevance of demonic pacts in witch mythology, we must first investigate the roots of both witchcraft and demonology. Witchcraft has ancient roots and is commonly connected with the use of natural forces, casting spells, and communicating with spirits. However, in many cultures, witches were thought to be able to conjure and control demons, making them both feared and revered. Demonology is the study of demons and how they interact with humans. In many theological traditions, demons are portrayed as wicked spirits or fallen angels who attempt to corrupt and destroy humanity. The combination of witchcraft and demonology gave rise to the concept of the witch's pact, a formal agreement between a witch and a demon in which the witch obtains power, knowledge, or other worldly help in exchange for something of great worth, typically their soul. The contract with a demon is typically shown as a formal agreement, frequently sealed in blood or through another ritualistic act. The specifics of the covenant differ based on the mythology, but they usually include a quid pro quo arrangement. The witch acquires supernatural abilities, hidden information, or the ability to affect events in the mortal world, while the demon receives something of equal or greater worth in exchange. The witch's soul is the most popular offering in these pacts. In many mythologies, the soul is seen as the essence of a person's being and their eternal connection to the divine or the afterlife. By giving their soul to a demon, a witch basically forfeits their hope of salvation and condemns themselves to endless punishment. This makes the deal an extremely high-stakes bet, since the witch risks not only their mortal life, but also their everlasting fate. The promise of power is frequently what draws people into striking a bargain with a demon. Witches who enter into these partnerships are typically portrayed as seeking to transcend the constraints of their earthly existence. Whether motivated by vengeance, a passion for knowledge, or a desire to control their fate, these witches are willing to pay any price to attain their objectives. One of the most well-known stories of a witch making a contract with a demon is that of Faust, a scholar who, unhappy with the boundaries of human knowledge, strikes a deal with the demon Mephistopheles. Faust receives boundless knowledge and worldly pleasures in return for his soul, but his bargain eventually leads to his demise. This narrative exemplifies the primary premise of many demonic pacts. The desire for power frequently blinds people to the true cost of their ambitions. The risks of forming a contract with a demon are varied and serious. Beyond the loss of one's soul, the witch frequently becomes involved in a web of deception and manipulation. Demons, by definition, are tricksters and deceivers. While they may grant the witch what she desires, they frequently violate the rules of the bargain, resulting in the witch's demise. Demons, by definition, are tricksters and deceivers. While they may grant the witch what she desires, they frequently violate the rules of the bargain, resulting in the witch's demise. For example, a witch who wishes for money may discover that her acquired riches come at the expense of the life of her loved ones. Alternatively, a witch seeking eternal youth may learn that she is doomed to live forever in a deteriorating, diseased body. These brutal twists serve as a warning that engaging with demons is always risky, as their primary objective is to corrupt and destroy. Another serious concern is the loss of the witch's humanity. In several myths, the power obtained by a demonic pact corrupts the witch, transforming her into something hideous. As they use their newly acquired skills, they may lose empathy, compassion, and connection to the mortal world. Over time, the witch may become more demon than human, caught in a circle of violence and evil from which they cannot escape. Given the severe consequences of a demonic pact, numerous myths examine ways to break or escape such an arrangement. However, this is rarely a simple process. Demons are crafty and will not give up their control over a soul without a fight. The witch may seek forgiveness by acts of tremendous self-sacrifice, appeal to higher powers for help, or try to outwit the demon. In some accounts, the witch is saved via love or repentance. A true change of heart, combined with a willingness to atone for their sins, can occasionally reduce the demon's hold on their soul. In other circumstances, the witch must participate in a war of wits, employing their brains and skill to exploit flaws in the contract or force the demon to free them. Even when a pact is dissolved, the witch frequently bears the scars of her struggle. They may be physically or spiritually scarred, haunted by memories of their time in the demon's service, or cursed to bear the consequences of their acts. This emphasizes the idea that while atonement is possible, the cost of forming a bargain with a demon cannot be totally reversed. Another dark part of this mythology is demonic possession, which occurs when a malignant spirit or demon takes over a human body and controls the individual's actions, thoughts, and emotions. This phenomena is frequently portrayed as a conflict between the demonic force and the soul of the afflicted person. In religious and mythical traditions, possession is typically associated with chaos, evil, and loss of individuality. The possessed person may engage in extreme actions such as aggression, speaking in tongues, or demonstrating knowledge and powers that exceed their usual capacity. Possession is frequently depicted in witch and demon mythology as the result of a witch's bargain with a demon. Witches may make bargains with demons in order to gain power, knowledge, or vengeance, granting them specific skills in exchange for their soul or service. This exchange, however, carries major hazards, including the possibility that the demon will take possession of the witch's body and mind. The agreement is a double-edged sword. Witches are typically portrayed as powerful persons who attempt to use supernatural forces to achieve their objectives. To accomplish this, they may summon demons and form pacts in which the demon provides the witch certain skills, such as the capacity to cast spells, alter nature, or affect others. However, these pacts are inherently perilous because demons are known for their cunning and deceitfulness. While a witch may assume they have control over the situation, the demon frequently has its own agenda, which might lead to the witch's demise. One of the key concerns of these agreements is the possibility of possession. After gaining access to the witch's soul, the demon may take advantage of the opportunity to grab complete control of the witch's physical body. This possession may not occur immediately. In some accounts, it develops gradually as the witch grows increasingly dependent on the demon's power, losing their sense of self in the process. In some circumstances, possession occurs suddenly and unexpectedly, with the demon exerting its power as soon as the bond is completed. Once possessed, the witch becomes a vehicle for the demon's will. Their actions are no longer their own, and they may be forced to execute horrible acts against their wishes. The loss of autonomy is a common topic in possession stories, emphasizing the risks of dealing with forces beyond one's control. Cultural interpretations of possession provide many viewpoints on the link between witches, demons, and the human soul. Witches are frequently depicted in European folklore as devil's agents who bestow powers in exchange for perpetual service. Possession, in this context, is considered as a punishment for the witch's crimes, a sharp warning of the ultimate cost of interacting with evil entities. African and Afro-Caribbean traditions, including Vodou and Santeria, offer a more complex perspective on possession. Possession by a spirit, which may not be demonic but rather a deity or ancestor, can be both beneficial and detrimental. The possessed person, called as a horse, becomes a conduit for the spirit's will while maintaining some level of agency. However, if the possessing spirit is malicious, the encounter may result in disease, madness, or death. In these traditions, witches must use discretion while summoning spirits, as the border between beneficial and dangerous possession is thin. Jinn, supernatural entities born from smokeless fire, are believed to possess people in Islamic religion. Jinn can be nice or evil, but those who possess humans are mostly wicked. Witches who use jinn for magic run the risk of being dominated by these entities, which can lead to possession. Ruqya, or Islamic exorcism practices, involve reciting Quranic verses and praying specific prayers to remove the jinn. Possession by spirits, frequently restless dead, is a prominent topic in East Asian folklore, including Japanese and Chinese. Witches may try to harness the power of these spirits, but if they lose control, they risk becoming possessed as well. Driven by unresolved grudges or ambitions, these spirits may utilize the witch's body to achieve their goals, resulting in tragic consequences. Possession is generally portrayed as a supernatural occurrence, although it also includes a psychological component. Possession can be interpreted as a metaphor for losing control of one's mind and body, a theme that transcends cultures. Witches who attempt to transcend the constraints of the human state by evoking demonic energies risk losing their humanity. Possession, in this view, depicts the psychological conflict between the witch's desire for power and the moral implications of her acts. The demon might be viewed as a personification of the witch's darkest inclinations, progressively consuming them as they dig deeper into forbidden knowledge. This psychological view is consistent with the overarching idea of possession as a loss of self, in which the witch is consumed by their aspirations, ultimately leading to their annihilation. Exorcism, or the ritualistic expulsion of a possessing entity, is a frequent response to possession in many cultures. It is used as a last resort to save the possessed person, albeit it is not always effective. Exorcism is sometimes portrayed as a combat between forces of good and evil, with the exorcist, typically a priest or shaman, using spiritual power to drive out the demon. An exorcism's success is frequently determined by the strength of the afflicted person's will and relationship to God. A witch who has already compromised their soul by making a contract with a demon may struggle to fight possession, making exorcism more difficult. In certain legends, the demon may be too powerful to expel, causing the witch's death or eternal damnation. Exorcism rites vary greatly between cultures. Exorcisms in Christianity frequently include holy water, crucifixes, and prayers. In Vodou, the possessed person may participate in a ceremony involving drumming, chanting, and protecting talismans. Exorcism in Islamic tradition entails weakening and expelling the jinn through the recitation of Quranic verses and certain prayers. Despite these differences, the core concept remains the same. Possession is dangerous, and exorcism is a way of restoring order by reclaiming the human soul from a malicious power. Possession in witch and demon mythology is frequently portrayed as morally ambiguous. While demons are clearly evil, witches are not always portrayed as innocent victims. Many myths describe witches willingly making pacts with demons, well knowing of the repercussions. This readiness to accept demonic powers for personal advantage paints witches in a morally ambiguous light, straddling the line between victim and offender. The moral ambiguity of possession is heightened by cases in which witches welcome their possession, viewing it as a necessary sacrifice for greater power. In such stories, the witch may maintain some control over the demon, employing its power to achieve their objectives while accepting the loss of their humanity as a trade-off. This representation confuses the typical narrative of possession as a solely bad experience, implying that for some, the benefits of demonic power may exceed the costs. Even in these circumstances, possession frequently leads to failure, either via the demon's final dominance or the witch's understanding of the actual cost of her acts. This emphasizes the notion that engaging with demonic forces is inherently harmful, and that seeking power through such means is inevitably self-destructive. In many mythology and folklore, witches are portrayed as individuals seeking power beyond humanity's inherent bounds. This urge frequently motivates them to seek forbidden information and perform rituals that summon and bind demons. The application of such power is varied. For some witches, it is a means of obtaining vengeance, influence, or endless life, whilst for others, it is the pleasure of wielding power that no mortal should have. However, the pursuit of power is not without risk. In these mythologies, demons are more than just sources of power. They are also symbols of corruption and disorder. Witches who seek their aid not only obtain power, but also enter into a perilous bond that will inevitably lead to moral and spiritual deterioration. The initial corruption begins subtly, when a witch, motivated by a noble purpose or desperation, seeks out a demon for help. The demon, crafty and deceptive, provides the needed power, but at a hidden cost. This cost could be the gradual loss of the witch's humanity, a decline into madness, or the understanding that the power wielded is not actually theirs, but that of the demon. In providing power, the demon establishes a presence in the mortal realm, using the witch as a conduit for its own purposes. The pact, a legally binding agreement, frequently sealed with blood or ceremony, binds the witch to commit acts or sacrifices that progressively weaken their morals. Each deed brings the witch closer to the abyss, while the demon grows stronger, feasting on the witch's corruption and the chaos it causes. As the witch goes farther into the black arts, their dependency on the demon grows, and the power they desired destroys them. The distinction between the witch and the demon fades, resulting in a complete corruption of power in which the witch is no longer in charge, but rather controlled by it. The inevitable demise of the tainted witch is a recurring topic in demon mythology. A witch who has struck a contract with a demon will always fail, no matter how powerful she is. This topic emphasizes the idea that acquiring power by corrupt means is inherently unstable and self-destructive. The witch, now completely perverted, is frequently defeated by the very forces she hoped to dominate. One heartbreaking component of their downfall is the knowledge that the power they possessed was never truly theirs, but rather belonged to the devil. When the demon has no more use for the witch, it discards her, often brutally and humiliatingly. The witch is stripped of their power and humanity and must face the repercussions of their acts, which include eternal damnation, lunacy, and death. In other myths, the witch's downfall is aided by external forces, such as a hero or a divine creature striving to restore order. In others, the witch's own arrogance leads to their demise, as they overestimate their authority over the demon or make catastrophic errors. After consuming the witch's soul and gaining a foothold in the mortal realm, the demon goes on to the next target, leaving destruction in its wake. This cycle of corruption continues as fresh witches are drawn to the attraction of power and fall into the same trap. The moral of the story is clear: power and corruption go hand in hand, and pursuing power through immoral or unethical means frequently results in one's downfall. The fable of the witch and the devil is a timeless reminder of the dangers of uncontrolled ambition and the corrupting influence of authority. Generational consequences are an essential component of the corruption of power in witch and demon mythology. Witches, in their pursuit of power, frequently pass on their knowledge and curses to succeeding generations, sustaining a centuries-long cycle of depravity. The deal struck with a demon may not cease with the original witch, but may be passed down to their offspring, with each generation bearing the consequences of their forefathers' actions. In certain tales, a witch's family may be cursed as a result of an ancestor's interactions with a demon, resulting in misfortune, lunacy, or an unbreakable tie with the demon that claims souls from generation to generation. The descendants of this corrupt tradition frequently face the same temptations and perils that lead to their ancestors' downfall. This generational aspect adds a dimension of tragedy to the story, as the first witch's greedy desire of power destroys not just herself, but her whole bloodline. The curse of corruption taints all it touches, and following generations' struggles to break free from it represent the larger theme of redemption and the difficulty of overcoming past transgressions. Redemption, albeit rare and arduous, is a central concept in witch and demon mythology. Despite the evil and corrupting character of these tales, there are accounts of witches rediscovering their humanity and breaking free from demonic influence. Redemption in this context necessitates significant sacrifice, self-awareness, and, in many cases, the assistance of a higher force or a pure-hearted human. A witch seeking redemption may abandon their deal with the demon, a risky move that frequently results in severe consequences, as the demon may attack with curses or attempt to drag the witch into the abyss. Purifying the soul, asking forgiveness, or committing acts of great goodness to atone for past wrongs may all be part of the redemption path. In other myths, the witch's salvation comes through self-sacrifice. Knowing the enormity of the corruption they have unleashed, the witch may opt to terminate their own life or give up their power to avert future harm. This act of selflessness stops the cycle of corruption and frees their spirit from the demon's clutches, providing a bittersweet ending. Redemption frequently entails breaking the generational curse, allowing future generations to live free from the shadow of the past. This restoration of equilibrium emphasizes the possibility of recovering one's humanity after a life of stress. These ancient myths warn us that power is a double-edged sword, and those who want it must be mindful of the corruption that comes with it. Darkness within them, the witches refused to acknowledge the price they had paid. They continued to wield their power, blind to the toll it was taking on their souls. But deep down, they knew that the time would come when Azazel would demand his due. The turning point came when Morwena, the high priestess, began to have visions of her own death. In these visions, she saw herself standing before Azazel, her soul being torn from her body and consumed by the demon. The visions were a warning, a reminder that their pact was not without consequences. Fearing for her soul and the souls of her sisters, Morwena sought a way to break the pact. She delved into forbidden knowledge, searching for a way to sever the bond between the witches and Azazel, but every spell she attempted and every ritual she performed only served to strengthen the demon's hold on them. As Morwena grew more desperate, the coven began to fracture. Some of the witches, intoxicated by their power, refused to believe that they were in any danger. They accused Morwena of weakness and of betraying the coven's legacy. Others, however, saw the truth in Morwena's warnings and joined her in seeking a way out. The coven was divided, and in their division, Azazel saw an opportunity. He whispered to the witches in their dreams, sowing discord and mistrust. He played on their fears and insecurities, turning them against one another. The once united coven was now a battleground, with witches fighting witches, their magic tainted by the demon's influence. In the midst of the chaos, Morwena discovered an ancient ritual that could potentially break the pact. But the ritual required a sacrifice, a willing soul, pure and untainted by the demon's corruption. Morwena knew that this was their only chance, but finding such a soul among the witches was impossible. Desperate, Morwena turned to a young woman named Arara, a healer who had been taken in by the coven years earlier. Arara was different from the other witches. She had never partaken in the dark rituals that had corrupted the coven. Her magic was pure, a gift from the earth itself, untouched by Azazel's influence. Morwena explained the situation to Arara, revealing the truth about the pact and the consequences they all faced. She asked Arara to perform the ritual and sacrifice herself to save the coven. Arara, though frightened, agreed. She had always known that the coven was in danger and could not stand by and watch as her sisters were consumed by darkness. The ritual was set to take place on the night of the next blood moon. The remaining witches gathered in the clearing, their hearts heavy with fear and uncertainty. Morwena led the ritual, drawing upon the ancient magic that had been passed down through generations. As the ritual began, Azazel appeared, his form more terrifying than ever. He knew what they were attempting and was determined to stop them. "You cannot escape your fate, witches," he snarled, his voice shaking the very earth beneath them. "Your souls belong to me." But Arara stood firm, her heart filled with quiet determination. She began to chant the words of the ritual, her voice clear and unwavering. As she spoke, the air around her crackled with energy, and a circle of light formed around her, pushing back the darkness. Azazel roared in fury, but he could not breach the circle. The power of the ritual was too strong, fueled by Arara's purity and sacrifice. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light erupted from the circle, engulfing Azazel and the witches. When the light faded, the clearing was silent. Azazel was gone, banished back to the abyss from whence he came. The witches, freed from the demon's influence, were left shaken and exhausted. But the price of their freedom was steep. Arara lay lifeless in the center of the circle, her sacrifice complete. In the aftermath, the witches mourned Arara's loss, knowing that without her they would have been doomed. The coven, now united once more, vowed to honor her memory by rejecting the darkness that had nearly destroyed them. They renounced the power that Azazel had given them, choosing instead to return to the old ways of magic, magic that was rooted in the earth and the natural world. But the scars of their ordeal ran deep. The witches were forever changed, their souls marked by their encounter with Azazel. They knew that they could never fully escape the consequences of their actions, and that the darkness they had once embraced would always be a part of them. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to watch all the upcoming videos. In the years that followed, the coven became more secretive, withdrawing from the world to heal and rebuild. They passed down the story of demonic retribution to each new generation, a cautionary tale of the dangers of seeking power at any cost. The story served as a reminder of the price they had paid and the sacrifices that had been made to save them. The witches no longer sought to dominate the world with their magic. Instead, they used their gifts to protect and heal, to preserve the balance between light and dark. They understood that power was a double-edged sword, and that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when to let go. The legacy of demonic retribution became a central part of the witches' mythology, a story passed down through the ages to remind them of their origins and their fall from grace. It was a story of hubris, of the temptation of power, and of the ultimate price of that power. But it was also a story of redemption, of sacrifice, and of the strength to overcome the darkness within. For the witches, demonic retribution was not just a story, but a living memory, a reminder that they were the guardians of a dangerous legacy. They had walked the path of darkness and emerged on the other side, but they knew that the shadow of Azazel would always loom over them. And so the witches continued their vigil, watching over the world from the shadows, ever mindful of the power they wielded and the responsibility that came with it. They knew that the battle between light and dark was never truly over, and that the choices they made would determine the fate of their souls. In the end, demonic retribution was a story of choices. The choice to seek power, the choice to embrace darkness, and the choice to sacrifice everything for the chance at redemption. It was a story that echoed through the ages, a testament to the enduring struggle between good and evil and the fragile line that separated the two. Social and spiritual consequences. One of the most immediate social consequences for those labeled as witches or involved in demonology is stigma. Throughout history, witches have been perceived as societal outcasts, accused of engaging in practices that defy the natural and moral order. In medieval Europe, witch hunts were fueled by fear and suspicion, leading to the widespread persecution of individuals, often women, who were accused of witchcraft. The mere suspicion of being a witch could result in ostracism from the community, destroying one's social standing and relationships. The fear of witches stemmed from the belief that they were in league with demonic forces capable of bringing harm to others through malevolent magic. This fear was often exacerbated by societal tensions such as economic hardship, disease, or conflict, leading to scapegoating and mass hysteria. As a result, those accused of witchcraft were frequently subjected to public shaming, imprisonment, torture, and execution. The social fabric of communities was thus torn apart by the fear and mistrust that these accusations engendered. Gendered persecution. Witchcraft and demonology have historically been intertwined with issues of gender, with women disproportionately targeted in witch hunts. This gendered persecution reflects broader societal anxieties about the role and power of women in patriarchal societies. Women who defied traditional gender roles, whether by practicing medicine, asserting independence, or simply being perceived as different, were often accused of witchcraft. This persecution served to reinforce societal norms, ensuring that women who threatened the status quo were silenced. The demonization of women as witches also played into misogynistic stereotypes that depicted women as inherently more susceptible to the temptations of the devil. These stereotypes were used to justify the brutal treatment of accused witches, who were often subjected to sexual violence as part of their punishment. The social consequence of this gendered persecution was the reinforcement of patriarchal structures, ensuring that women remained subservient to men and that any deviation from prescribed roles was met with harsh retribution. Erosion of community trust. The persecution of those accused of witchcraft also led to an erosion of community trust. The witch hunts and trials not only targeted individuals, but also created a culture of suspicion and fear within communities. Neighbors turned against one another. Accusations were often driven by personal grudges or societal pressures, and the social cohesion of entire communities was undermined. The fear of witchcraft became a tool for control and manipulation, leading to widespread paranoia and a breakdown in community relationships. The lasting impact of these events left communities fractured and distrustful, with the scars of such persecution often enduring long after the trials had ended. The fear of witchcraft and demonology also eroded confidence in communities. As charges of witchcraft grew, people became more skeptical of their neighbors, friends, and even family members. The witch hunts fostered a paranoid climate in which anyone may be suspected of conspiring with demonic entities. This loss of trust has catastrophic social implications, as once tight societies became divided and antagonistic. The erosion of trust had a long-term impact on social cohesiveness, as the dread of witchcraft persisted long after the witch hunts were over. In some cases, the accusations and accompanying trials tore entire communities apart, leaving long-term wounds on society. The impact of these events can still be felt today, as fear of the other, whether it's witches, demons, or other perceived threats, continues to shape social relations. D. Moral panic and hysteria. Engaging in demonology and witchcraft has social effects, including moral panic. This happens when society experiences a surge of dread and anxiety about perceived challenges to its moral order. Witch hunts are a typical example of moral panic, in which widespread dread of witches and their alleged demonic abilities resulted in hysteria. Such panics can have terrible effects, including the persecution of innocent people and the strengthening of oppressive societal norms. Moral panics are fueled by sensationalism and fear-mongering and are frequently motivated by religious or political authorities seeking control. The social ramifications of these panics include the preservation of a culture of fear in which dissenting voices are stifled and conformity is imposed. This stifles societal growth and maintains current power structures, leaving individuals who oppose the status quo ostracized or removed. 2. Spiritual consequences. A. The fairy bargain. The concept of the fairy bargain is central to demon mythology, a pact made with the devil in exchange for power, knowledge, or some other worldly reward. The spiritual ramifications of such a transaction are terrible. The individual is frequently portrayed as losing their soul, becoming corrupted by the very elements they wanted to control. This motif is common in literature, where people who participate in demonic pacts are eventually killed by their own hubris. The spiritual result of the fairy agreement is the loss of one's humanity. In an attempt to overcome the constraints of the human condition, the individual becomes enslaved to the exact forces they intended to control. This causes a severe spiritual emptiness as the individual grows estranged from their own soul and the divine. The fairy bargain thus serves as a cautionary tale, warning of the risks of hubris and the spiritual cost of pursuing power at any cost. B. Damnation and eternal suffering. Many religious systems hold that persons who practice witchcraft or demonology are condemned to eternal damnation. The spiritual result of consorting with demonic entities is the loss of one's soul and eternal separation from God. This view is based on the notion that such behaviors are a direct insult to the divine order, indicating a rejection of God's will in favor of loyalty to darker forces. The fear of damnation has been a significant deterrent to practicing witchcraft or demonology, as the spiritual repercussions are viewed as far worse than any temporal punishment. The possibility of eternal pain acts as a reminder of the ultimate cost of opposing the divine, strengthening the moral and spiritual order. This concept also helps to promote social cohesion, since people who are viewed as dangers to the spiritual order are shunned and punished. C. Immoral corruption and the loss of virtue. Witchcraft and demonology are frequently described as causing moral degradation and the loss of virtue. The spiritual consequence of engaging in dark energies is the erosion of one's moral compass, as the individual becomes progressively consumed by greed, lust, and other vices. This moral degradation is frequently depicted as a gradual process in which the individual gets increasingly wicked as they plummet deeper into the abyss of demonology. Many cautionary stories about witchcraft and demonology focus on the loss of virtue, with characters who engage in such practices losing their sense of right and wrong. This spiritual degeneration is frequently associated with the loss of one's soul, as the individual grows progressively detached from the divine and their own humanity. The result is a life of depravity and eventually spiritual annihilation. D. Existential crisis and loss of identity. For those who practice witchcraft or demonology, the spiritual consequences can include an existential crisis. The individual who seeks power through demonic forces frequently faces existential concerns regarding the nature of good and evil, the meaning of life, and the existence of the soul. This existential crisis can cause a profound sense of alienation and despair as the individual grapples with the consequences of their actions. Another spiritual consequence of practicing witchcraft or demonology is the loss of identity. Individuals who are captivated by the quest of power or knowledge via dark powers frequently lose sight of who they are, becoming increasingly alienated from their genuine selves. This loss of identity can lead to feelings of emptiness and purposelessness, as the individual realizes they have given up their soul for something that would ultimately leave them unsatisfied. 3. The interplay of social and spiritual consequences. Witchcraft and demonology have far-reaching societal and spiritual implications. Social ostracism and persecution frequently result in spiritual misery, as persons accused of witchcraft are cut off from the community and the divine. In contrast, the spiritual implications of practicing demonology, such as moral degradation and loss of identity, can lead to social alienation as the individual becomes progressively isolated from others. The interaction of social and spiritual repercussions emphasizes broader themes of power, control, and resistance. The fear of witchcraft and demonology frequently reflects broader cultural worries about power and authority, as anyone deemed to challenge the existing quo face punishment. At the same time, the spiritual ramifications of participating in evil powers serve as a warning about the risks of pursuing power at the expense of the soul. The legacy of witch hunts and demon mythology continues to have an impact on modern culture, as fear of the other and the penalties of breaking societal standards remain potent factors. The social and spiritual implications of practicing witchcraft and demonology serve as a warning of the risks of giving in to fear, as well as the significance of striking a balance between the search of knowledge and the preservation of humanity. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to watch all the upcoming videos. Conclusion: the social and spiritual implications of practicing witchcraft and demon mythology are not just historical relics, they continue to resonate in present times. In today's culture, the obsession with witches, demons, and the occult reflects persistent conflicts between individual autonomy and societal standards, as well as the spiritual search for meaning in an increasingly secular world. The rebirth of interest in witchcraft and the occult in popular culture can be interpreted as both a form of opposition to existing power systems and an exploration of alternative spiritual paths. However, the social and spiritual implications remain relevant, as those who differ from popular ideas continue to face stigma and alienation. The interaction of social and spiritual implications in witchcraft and demon mythology is a powerful reminder of the difficulties of human existence. It emphasizes the difficulties of negotiating the distinctions between the known and the unknown, the holy and profane, and the individual and the collective. As society evolves, these issues will definitely remain relevant, providing insights into the ongoing human attempt to comprehend the forces that govern our existence. Betrayal of the demon. The story opens with a coven of witches commanded by Isolde, a strong sorceress. Isolde is known for her wisdom and control over the elements, yet she is driven by a yearning for even more power. She understands that in order to fulfill her goals, she must make a bargain with a demon, a creature of enormous strength and wisdom, but also of deception and evil. In demon mythology, a pact is a binding agreement, frequently sealed with blood or other rites, in which the witch offers something valuable in exchange for the demon's services. This could include a sacrifice, a portion of their soul, or service in the hereafter. However, the demon's genuine goal is rarely clear. Their promises are filled with deception, and their loyalty is only as strong as their immediate gain. Isolde, motivated by a desire for power, decides to summon Malika, an ancient demon famed for bestowing tremendous skills on those who dare to summon him. The ceremony takes place at night, when the curtain between realms is the thinnest and the air is filled with magic. Surrounded by her coven, Isolde draws the sigils, utters the incantations, and makes a sacrifice, a rare and powerful relic containing the essence of an ancient god. Malika comes as a towering figure of shadow and flame, his eyes filled with wicked intellect. He agrees to the bargain, promising Isolde the ability to influence minds and bend the will of monarchs in exchange for her service after death. A price Isolde is willing to pay, sure that she will be able to escape her fate before the time comes. The rise of power. With Malika's strength pouring through her veins, Isolde rapidly gains notoriety. She bends the minds of kings and queens, directing the trajectory of empires to her liking. Her coven thrives, becoming the most feared and revered in the land. However, with each success, the demon's hold on her strengthens. Her thoughts grow darker, her actions more brutal, and a shadow appears to follow her every move. In demon mythology, the power provided by demons is frequently a double-edged sword. While it provides enormous strength, it also corrupts the soul, making the witch more vulnerable to the demon's influence. Isolde starts to see changes within herself. Her empathy evaporates, and her dreams are filled with images of fire and torture. The coven members, who were formerly loyal and committed, begin to fear her, sense the darkness that is gradually engulfing their queen. Despite these warning flags, Isolde stays committed to her aspirations. She feels she can control Malika and that she is the exception to the rule. She continues to explore deeper into forbidden magic, looking for a means to break free from the agreement while maintaining her newfound strength. But the deeper she digs, the more entwined she becomes in the demon's web. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to watch all the upcoming videos. The betrayal. Isolde's influence grows, and so does Malika's impatience. In mythology, demons are chaotic and destructive spirits whose affiliations are usually transitory. Malika begins to subtly undermine Isolde's intentions, transforming her victories into hollow triumphs. The countries she formerly ruled with ease are suddenly rebelling against her, fueled by a strange power that appears to counter her every move. Realizing she is losing control, Isolde confronts Malika, demanding to know why her power is waning. The devil, with a cruel smirk, discloses the truth. The pact was never intended to last. He has gradually drained her power, fed on her spirit, and she will soon be nothing more than a husk, a vessel for him to occupy and wreak devastation on the world. In this moment, Isolde knows the true nature of demons. They are parasites that feed on mortals' ambitions and wants until nothing remains. She tries to fight back and break the pact, but it's too late. The demon's grip on her is too tight, and her own strength, once her greatest weapon, is now her downfall. The fall. Isolde's downfall is rapid and severe. The countries she once ruled turn against her, her coven is split, and she is pursued by those she once considered allies. The strength that once made her unbeatable has now isolated her, making her a figure of terror and contempt. Desperate, she turns to the darkest of magics, hoping to banish Malika and restore her soul. Isolde eventually confronts Malika in a final desperate combat. Using the last of her strength, she bonds the demon to a corporeal form, confining him in the mortal world. However, the expense is high. Isolde is fatally wounded, and with her last breath, she traps the demon inside a cursed item, ensuring that he will never escape. But even in death, Isolde's victory is hollow. Her soul is also connected to the item, locked alongside the demon she wanted to master. The artifact, a relic of enormous power and malevolence, becomes a source of horror, as those who seek it are bound to share Isolde's fate. The aftermath. Lessons on caution. The story of Isolde and Malika is a cautionary tale in demon mythology. It demonstrates the dangers of arrogance and the deadly nature of dealing with demons. Witches, in their desire for power, frequently misjudge the cunning and malevolence of these beings, believing they can control what is fundamentally uncontrollable. Many versions of this tale depict the artifact containing Isolde and Malika as a cursed relic sought after by individuals who believe they can harness its power. However, the outcome is consistent. The demon betrays the witch, causing damage and despair. The relic is finally lost to time, buried deep under the earth, but the legend serves as a warning to those who dare to summon forces beyond their comprehension. The broader implications. The narrative of the demon's betrayal is more than just an example of individual hubris. It also reflects bigger elements in demon mythology. It emphasizes the hazards of pursuing power without first knowing the repercussions. as well as the inevitable risk of interacting with malicious forces. In many cultures, demons are viewed as representations of chaos and devastation, entities that exist to test mortals' fortitude and morals. Witches, as middlemen between the human and otherworldly worlds, are especially vulnerable to these influences. Their quest for power, knowledge, or vengeance might take them down a dark path, blurring the distinction between ally and enemy. The contract with a demon represents the greater human condition, the yearning to overcome limitations, seize control of one's destiny, and the temptation to take shortcuts, even if they come with significant consequences. However, in demon legend, these shortcuts are invariably traps, leading to inevitable betrayal and destruction. The tale of Isolde and Malika is just one of many in the vast fabric of demon mythology. It serves as a reminder of the eternal conflict between mortals and the forces of darkness, which is frequently characterized by deception, treachery, and the terrible cost of ambition. For witches, the message is clear: devil's power is never worth the price. While the attraction of such power is strong, the repercussions are invariably negative. The demon's betrayal is not merely a possibility, it is an unavoidable fact of these monsters' very existence. Finally, the story serves as a warning to anyone seeking authority beyond their understanding. The witch's road is treacherous, full with temptations and traps. In the world of demon mythology, the greatest threat comes from those who promise the world but deliver only darkness and sorrow. I appreciate your viewing very much. Stay tuned to watch the next episode. If you like our video, then like it, subscribe our channel for more exciting videos, and press the bell icon for updates. Please feel free to post any comments below with any questions or ideas you may have for the next videos. Have a curious mind and continue diving into the amazing realm of mythology. Until the next time.